Colleagues, that having said that, we're very privileged this morning to have Dr. Sean Phillips and the team from the Department of Water and Sanitation to talk about water governance matters. In August this year, Agri SA, as we normally do, attended the sector-specific raw water tariff consultations, and after that, the national raw water tariff consultations, which is an opportunity each year in which the department shares with the public at large and particular stakeholders such as the agricultural sector a number of things that happen and develop within the department's inner chambers, if I can put it that way. I asked Dr. Phillips, and he's graciously agreed in his busy schedule to come and explain a couple of the things that were presented during the National Raw Water Tariff consultations, including developments with respect to the tariffs themselves, infrastructure development, a number of other issues, including legislative developments that are on the cards, and also a thing that is very dear to the agricultural sector, the verification and validation process. Dr. Phillips, we're not going to take up much of your time. We're in your hands this morning to do the presentation, lead it for us, and then if we have at the end enough time, we're going to allow for certain questions. We're also going to be seeing you and your colleagues later this week, a team from Agri SA, to discuss and meet on issues pertinent as we go into the rainy season in the flooding area. So there are interactions that are ongoing at all times. But from the outset, from my side, thank you so much for availing yourself to participate in this morning's webinar. We are extremely grateful for the relationship we have with you and with your colleagues, and we look forward to hearing from you this morning. Thank you. With that, over to you, Dr. Phillips.
Okay, thank you very much. Eustacia, can you be ready to present after me, please? Just a very short summary of the... We're going to follow the agenda that you sent, Jansa, which indicated that I would present a general overview, and then we would also have separate presentations by Eustacia or Toko and by SIPO on the verification validation, and then Leonardo about the infrastructure. So we'll make those presentations. Eustacia, are you ready to present after me with a short presentation? She's on hold. I'm not sure why, but let me start. In the meantime, hopefully they'll come in. I'm going to bring up my presentation. Just a minute. Okay, so we can send you this presentation afterwards. I'll be quite short. Generally in the country, the situation for raw water is that generally there's a balance between supply and demand, but there's local deficits. For example, in Nelson Mandela Bay, we had a severe drought, which resulted in a deficit. Gauteng currently has a deficit of treated water, which is related to a deficit of raw water because Lesotho Highlands Phase 2 is 9 years overdue. So Rand Water hasn't been able to put in place additional treatment capacity because they're not allowed to abstract any more water from the integrated until Lesotho Highlands Phase 2 comes online. So that's the main reason why there's been problems in Gauteng with regard to water supply. We did have a lot of major projects which were delayed for a long time. Under our current minister's leadership, we've managed to unblock all those delays, and this is just a sample of them. Is over 100 billion worth listed here, which are now moved into implementation phase. Over 60% of these are financed by private sector finance, either through loans or through partnerships such as the OMM project in Limpopo. We are concerned about the financial sustainability of the sector, and the root cause of that concern is because of weak billing and revenue collection at municipal level. Money owed to water boards by municipalities is increasing exponentially, and we're going to start implementing much more stringent credit control measures to deal with that problem. There's no alternative. At the same time as the financial, and this problem of municipalities owing water boards money results in cascading problems, financial problems throughout the sector, because the water boards owe our water trading entity money. So it's a concern for the financial sustainability of the whole sector. Then also in terms of water services, the quality of water services, our Green Drop report showed a drop in the quality of wastewater treatment services at municipal level. Our Green Drop report, which we're going to issue in 2 weeks' time, shows a marked decline in the quality of drinking water systems in terms of microbiological quality. It shows that the percentage of drinking water systems at municipal level with poor or bad microbiological quality has increased from 5% in 2012 to 46% in 2022. So we're giving municipalities a lot of support, but there's limits to those support, and we are looking at reforms, more fundamental reforms, which are going to be about strengthening the existing relationship or the existing requirements of the Water Services Act with regard to the separation of Water Services Authority and Water Service Provider functions. 3 days ago, we gazetted for public comment the amended Water Services Act, the draft amended Water Services Act, which introduces an operating license system for water service providers at municipal level and provides for the minister as a last resort to instruct a municipality to appoint a licensed water service provider. It also does some things like clarify what is a water services authority functions and what are WSP functions, and importantly says that billing and revenue collection is a WSP function. And then finally, other key priorities for us. You will have seen that also a few days ago, I think it was on Friday, we gazetted the draft National Water Amendment Bill for public comment. The National Water Resource Infrastructure Agency Bill is before Parliament. That, if it's passed, will result in our water trading entity being merged with the TCTA to create the NWRA, and the transfer of all the department's assets to the NWRA to create something like a SUNROL for water, for national water functions, which will have a substantial balance sheet and associated revenues. And our main intention is to have an entity that will be able to borrow without being limited to borrowing with Treasury guarantees, as the TCTA currently is. Transformation of irrigation boards into water use associations remains a priority. We're trying to accelerate that. We're far behind our timeframes in that regard. The raw water pricing strategy, we're currently in consultation with National Treasury following the consultation process. As DWS, we're still arguing for the gradual withdrawal of caps for irrigation water prices. When I say gradual withdrawal of the caps, we want to watch the impact on food prices carefully, and we may slow the gradual withdrawal of those caps depending on the impact on food prices. We don't think it's sustainable to keep these caps. Maintenance and operation of the water infrastructure has to be paid for somewhere. The caps means that the revenue doesn't cover the costs, which means that the infrastructure is going to decline over time. So to avoid that, we have to look at cost-reflective tariffs. We're in the process of establishing the remaining 4 catchment management agencies. Eustacia will talk more about that at a high level. Our target is to have them established by April next year, and then we're going to transfer about 1,000 of our staff to the other 4 catchment management agencies. Even when the National Water Infrastructure Agency is established, we'll also be transferring about 3,000 of our staff who do the maintenance and operation of the dams to that. So we're going through a major process of restructuring as the department, with about half of our staff being moved out over the next 2 years either to the NWRA or to the new catchment management agencies. And then finally, with regard to the water use licensing regulations, we received the public comments, and we're still in the process of consultation with the Minister about the the comments received, and there hasn't been any decision taken yet about it. If the Minister decides to issue these regulations before the National Water Amendment Bill is passed by Parliament, then of course the regulations will be passed under the current Act, and then they might have to be reviewed again to be in line with the new Act. Or alternatively, there's a possibility that we might wait until the Water Amendment Bill is passed and becomes an Act before issuing the water use license regulations. We haven't made a decision in that regard yet. That's my overview. Jansa, I don't know if you want to take questions on that. Eustacia, are you ready to present? Eustacia?
Yes, DG, we are ready.
Now your presentation must be very short. Okay.
Yes.
You saw how short I was and how I did the highlights. We haven't got time for you to make a long, detailed presentation. Jansa, would you like us to go through all the presentations and then we take questions and discussion afterwards?
Dr. Phillips, I think that's going to be best. I appreciate you're on a prime time pressure. Let's do that, and then at the end we allow selected questions.
Okay, over to you, Station Toko.
Thank you, DG. We are loading the presentation, DG. Agri SA. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning.
Toko, we can't see the presentation. You've clicked on the wrong thing. We can just see you haven't brought up the presentation. You're sharing the wrong thing.
Okay, DG, sorry.
Have you opened the presentation?
Yes, DG.
Then you're sharing the wrong thing from your screen.
Okay. DG, I have emailed it to you as well.
Okay, it should be visible now. Can people see it? I've shared it.
Thank you, Chair. Could you perhaps just put it on presentation mode, just to make it clearer?
Okay, go, Toko.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Apologies about this. Thank you, DG. We were requested to talk about the institutional reforms in the water sector. And we will be sharing the progress that we have made. We have very few slides, and we will try touch on the change drivers for the institutional reforms, the water sector value chain, and the key institutions, and we will focus on the progress on the National Water Resource Infrastructure Agency, the transformation of irrigation boards into water user associations, the progress on CMAs, and reconfiguration of water boards. Next slide, DG. And in terms of the purpose, we have already highlighted it, and the change drivers for all institutional reforms for both water resource and water services institutions. We want to improve and enhance institutional efficiencies and rationalize the numbers of institutions in the water sector, and to ensure the economies of scale. We also want to maintain the financial viability, enhance the ability of the institutions to raise capital from the markets, as the national fiscus is not adequate.
Toko, we're not going to have time for you to read through it all. You need to go quicker. You need to make 1 or 2 points per slide, please.
Okay, thanks, DG. And we also want to strengthen the issues around the governance and capacity of the entities to operate at a local level. Then and to also to improve service delivery. In terms of the institutions that are affected, it's the national, the TCTA.
Toko, you can skip this slide. Toko, sorry, you're going to have to speed up. We've got two more presentations. We need time for discussion. Skip this type of slide. They can read it later.
Okay, DG. Then the next slide is around the progress of the National Water Resource Infrastructure Agency bill. I'm not sure whether DG has touched on it, but it is at a very advanced level. It is now at a parliamentary stage. The next slide, DG. And the portfolio committee has published invitations for public submissions, which closed on the 4th November, and we will be appearing to the portfolio committee on Friday as the department to respond on all oral submissions that have been made. The next slide, DG, is around the transformation of irrigation boards. I have summarized, DG, of where we are with the bill. It's parliamentary, and the transformation of irrigation boards. This is the one that is very critical to Agri SA, where we also need your assistance. As you are aware that on the 4th of April, the minister published a gazette notice calling for all irrigation boards to be transformed in the country. And since that 90 days period, we received 59 proposals for transformation. And out of those 59 proposals, 33 have been transformed and 26 are being processed. So we still have operational 102 irrigation boards that we request Agri SA, for those that are your members, if you can positively influence them to fast track the transformation from the 1956 Act to the 1998. What follows is a table that indicates the figures from where we are. We were from 1998 up to present, as we are indicating that we have 102 irrigation boards at the moment. We have identified the challenges that you are familiar with. Most of them did not have enough time to transform or to prepare proposals during the 90 days period. We have issues around the issues of assets and liabilities, where we are amalgamating the existing irrigation boards. We also have the issues when they submit proposals around the gender and race composition in the proposals, but Minister has signed a lot of them and has given them a conditional approval that they need to ensure that within 1 year they deal with the issues of race and gender in the composition of the MENCO. So What follows then is the progress on the catchment management agencies. I think you are familiar with the concept of managing water resources at a local level. The National Water Resource Strategy 3 has pronounced on the 6 water management areas. And in terms of the progress, the Breede Olifants has also been gazetted and listed in the PFMA, and a transitional process should be finalized by end of March. This means that in the Western Cape, rivers and water systems, there will be one CMA in the Western Cape. The Val Orange is also at advanced level. The board has been appointed. We will hear today the results of the cabinet in terms of the members of the board, and the transitional process is on course, should be finalized by March 2024. Same with the Pongola Mzimkhulu. The cabinet will announce today, pronounce on the members of the board of the Pongola Mzimkhulu. The next one is the Limpopo Olifants. It's still lagging behind. It should be finalized. It has not been listed at National Treasury under the PFMA, and we are hoping that by end of March it will be listed. The last one is the Mzimvu Botsisikama in the Eastern Cape. The process is also at advanced level, and the interviews for the potential board members has been done. The next slide is the one on the reconfiguration of water boards. We know that you are mainly interested in the water resource institutions, but we will touch on this one. I think we had 9 water boards previously. We now have 7 with the disestablishment of Sedibank and Mhlathuze Water. The next slide, DG, in terms of the reconfiguration of Rand Water. It is intended that Rand Water boundary will be intended to cover the entire Mpumalanga.
Toko, I think you can skip this progress on the water boards.
Okay, thank you, DG. So that is all from our side. Thank you very much. Yo, DG, it was a rush job. Thank you,
Chairperson. We don't have much time, and we need to keep time for discussion. Okay, so according to the agenda, the next slide is Sipho. Sipho, are you ready to present on the V&V?
Morning, DG, and morning all the people in the platform. Yes, DG, I'm ready to present.
Okay, over to you.
Dr. Phillips, while we wait for Advocate Skosana, we're awaiting the publication of the 2024-2025 raw water tariffs any time now. Could you give us an indication of when we might expect them?
Sipho, can you answer that as well? Or Polani? Polani, do you want to answer that while we're waiting for Sipho to bring up his presentation? Sipho, you know.
Thank you, DG. Good morning, everyone. Yes, the water tariffs have been approved by the minister, and they should be published very soon. I will check with the team, but they have been approved. And
we have to go through an administrative process, Janse, to procurement to get the government printing officer to gazette them. So it'll be any time now. Make it bigger, Sipho. Full screen. Okay. Again, Sipho, can I appeal to you? Go quickly through it. Don't go into all the detail. They can read it later. Just highlights. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, DG, and morning. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, we are implementing V&V, and maybe what needed to be said again and to be repeated is that we are taking a two-pronged approach in terms of a multi-pronged approach for that matter, because we've got our internal resources that are on the ground and that are actually doing Mokolo and Lichtenburg as we're talking now. Then we've got the PSP that is in Olifants, which is our main project as we speak, because we want to finalize Olifants as speedily as possible, and it actually includes the whole Letaba, because in the middle Letaba we are under severe pressure to do compulsory licensing, and also we're engaging WRC to say how do we then look at countrywide and finalize the VNV. So this map denotes the status of VNV in various areas. You might not be reading or able to read everything that is in the map, but in our reporting, we decided this time to consolidate as much as possible. You'll realize you're no longer having Crocodile West Marico. We've fused it with Limpopo and just took all those properties into one. So this is the status as it's currently denoted. You've got your Mzimbu Butizigama, which its character will stay the same as when we go as we are in the CMA mode. Then you've got Orange, which is our biggest. It's fairly well represented because it's at 83%, and our internal resources are dealing with whatever is remaining. Obviously, the challenge is the lower Orange because of the vastness of the area in terms of the people traveling, the biggest areas to cover all the people that are being verified. Then we've got the Val, then we've got Pongola Mzimkhulu, Usutu, and Olifants. Olifants, you've got some movements because Olifants is where we did not do a VNV, but as I'm indicating now, we've got a PSP on the ground. You might be saying we've been having a PSP for a while, but we are actually at 9.6%. Is because of all the work that is being done on the validation side. As soon as that work is settled, all the consultations have been done, and actually the information that is being generated vis-a-vis the information that is advanced by the users, then we'll go into the verification proper, then those figures will go up much bigger. So we've got Limpopo as I've talked to it, and then Olifants and Brede Horets. So that is the status currently, and as we are going along, in two areas where our status will improve, it will be Olifants, then it will be Limpopo, it will be Orange, because practically those are the three areas where the actual work is happening. The others is actually hinging on us finalizing whatever processes that we are having with the WRC. So, but our focal areas now, as we go on, is Orange, then Olifants, and Limpopo, and then the others will do it as a national project. So this is the information about actually what we're doing in Limpopo and Mokolo in particular, and Lichtenburg. Then the section 33s that we've issued, then and the section 35.1 and the section 35.4. So now if you look into the section 33s, they tell you as to, they talk to the finalization of the VNV within the areas of the irrigation boards. So that talks to Mokolo. Then the section 35.4 tells you the actual finalization of VNV outside the irrigation board. So we're happy with the progress that we are making, because this is actually the projects that are handled internally with the limited resources that the WRC has. So then we are in Olifants. This is the information about Olifants. Our priority is to start with the Letaba first, because in the Letaba there are serious issues about the people not sharing water as they should, and they've got a direct effect on the availability of the water of the people around Kiani and all that. So Letaba, Middle Letaba in particular, is our priority. The approach that we've taken in Olifants is to say, before we do the rest of the Oliphant, we must finish Letaba. So that is the focus that we are doing, and we are saying by end of March, Letaba will be done so that we can start with the compulsory licensing in the middle Letaba. So this is the progress that we are showing with respect to Letaba, and to say what is our approach and what is it that we are going to do in the remainder of the Oliphants. So it reflects how many Section 33s that we are having, meaning that what is the verification that we are having within the areas of the water user associations and the irrigation board, and what sort of figures are we looking at in the areas that are outside. So that is that. But importantly, DG, maybe to say, once we've done that, then we will then be saying we need to do compulsory licensing in both Letaba and Umgeni catchments. And we've got our indicative date as to when we'll be starting that compulsory licensing. Obviously, it comes post the finalization of the VNB. Once we do and why are we targeting, for instance, Letaba for compulsory licensing? Because we've realized that we don't achieve the efficiencies that we needed to achieve with respect to the sharing of the water resources and making sure that it's available to everybody else. And we also not protecting the environment as we should, because people are pumping that river dry. There are two main rivers that are supporting the Middle Letaba. There is Indota for the environment and all that, and that is contrary to what our current legislation provides for. So we need to address that, put the system back into balance, while actually making sure that people are also allocated water for economic development. So these are sort of the plans that we are having, DG. I think I will stop there. That is the long and short of my presentation. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Sipho. Leonardo, are you ready to talk?
Yes, DJ, I will go ahead so long. Just put it on the screen. I will just go very quickly with regards to this presentation as per the cue that we were given. Just to say on this slide is that the department is responsible for a number of assets in ensuring that we do interbase and transfer as part of our duties. We do the storage as we also do then the bulk supply, raw water supply within our government water schemes with a total asset base that is to the value of more than 80 billion in terms of its depreciated value. Obviously, replacement value would be much higher than that. We are aware in terms of our asset condition because of the annual asset review that we are taking. And at this point in time, we have been increasing our asset value over the past 3 years to the tune of about 120 million based on the maintenance projects as well as the refurbishment program that we are undertaking. And we have about 15.2 billion rands of assets under construction as we are going through our processes of also upgrading, increasing the height of our dam walls and so forth. And we will continue with those annual asset evaluations to ensure that we are aware in terms of where the investments are to be made. We note that the conveyance systems, especially the canals, have a great impact on the sustenance of agricultural activities in the country, and the department is investing in these assets to ensure that we sustain it and we keep it going. Obviously, there is the situation where that we are using the funding that the department has to its availability to look at the priority schemes. Obviously, for those who are living in a certain scheme, their scheme will be a priority. But because the department have to look at a number of schemes, 8,100 kilometers of canal systems in total, we have to prioritize according to our own risk assessments. These are few of the schemes that are currently under construction. And then we have also a number of schemes that are currently under design. And so these would not include major schemes such as the Ranyerit and the Fallards government water schemes, because the department is exploring alternative means. The Development Bank of South Africa is assisting us in that regard, and recently we have noted that the the project preparation funding that has been availed by the DBSA as well for the Fallards is assisting us to get these projects shovel ready, and we trust that we can follow a similar route with Ranyerit. And we have been engaging the infrastructure fund to assist us with the establishment of a alternative means of doing the rehabilitation of conveyance systems funding initiative, to ensure that we have more funding available now to do a more a peak type of investment into the existing infrastructure that we have for conveyance systems. In terms of our larger government water schemes, we at this point in time have 1,224 maintenance projects to be conducted within this financial year, and we have 16 mechanical and electrical maintenance term contractors to augment the current maintenance capacity of the department internally. And we are also at this point in time also exploring, according to our new infrastructure procurement strategy, an element that has been causing major delays as far as which is procurement, as far as our implementation of our maintenance programs are concerned. So we have a new strategy, and we are trying to also bring in framework agreements to augment even the capacity that we have outsourced to go through. I won't go into the details of these projects, but these would just be some of the examples of key projects that we are doing across the country, such as at the Welbedach Dam, Sterkfontein Dam, as well as the FreeSub. The FreeSub scheme obviously provides more to our to Sasol as well as Eskom, even though not directly impacting on the agricultural sector, but we trust that you will also comprehend the fact that if we don't provide water to Eskom, especially Kusile, which is a major scheme, which also receives water through the scheme, then there wouldn't be electricity, which will definitely have a direct impact then on the agricultural sector, meaning that even though not primarily affected, secondary effect of risk remains, and therefore the department's investment there is quite key for the larger South Africa as its whole. Jericho Pump Station also form part of the schemes that provide water to Eskom. And then we have Loskop Dam, that we're also doing outlet works there, as well as which will be benefiting also the agricultural sector in the Groblersdal area, and the Loskop water scheme, a government water scheme as well, Hartbeespoort, and then also in Middelataba in Tzaneen area. And this is but a maintenance project, and not also including the raising of Tzaneen Dam, which is also recommenced, and the work has progressed there, which means that that area will also receive a little bit higher level of water security. In Midmar Dam area, in the Jingwayo Dam, which is also in KZN area, we are fixing the gate that has failed, as well as in the Western Cape, the Palmit, which is more serving a domestic side and not so much the agricultural side, that is also being done. And then also in terms of on the Eastern Cape, we have also now included the rehabilitation of Mthatha Dam, and that project is 40 meters away from completion, which means that it has also progressed quite very well. We're also in the process of trying to reduce our input cost as far as the business is concerned, as you would understand that what we are doing is not coming from the fiscus. We are basically running a business in the department to ensure that we receive revenue, and we then are keeping the government water schemes afloat in terms of how we are doing it. So one of our higher cost drivers would be the energy, obviously, because of pumping. That is quite a high input cost that we have to do. So we are engaging on an energy efficiency program, which would, when we already issued an expression of interest, 32 independent power producers responded to that initial expression of interest. We had a compulsory briefing session on the 20th of October, and all of them attended, and we are giving them now time until the end of March to conduct the required investigations so that they can give proper offtake agreements to the department as proposals that we can consider to actually whom we will be entering into, which will then be concluded in July 2024. And throughout this, the reduction of 11.6 MVA energy demand from Eskom, and Eskom is quite supportive to this whole initiative because that will also free up some energy on the grid as we will go forward. So that would be my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Leonardo. Janse, that's our story. Over to you.
Thank you, DG, and thank you to the presenters, the colleagues, and again for the time. We have until 10:30 this morning, and we've really pressing on members to raise the questions with the Director General and his team, as were recently discussed at Agri SA's Natural Resources Policy Committee meetings that took place last week. DGI, the correct colleagues are here, but I do want to provide opportunity for persons on the call to raise questions. With your permission, with the permission of the rest of the participants, I'm going to kick off specifically with respect to the question that was asked to Agri SA at its Centre of Excellence meeting, and it concerns historical water billing. Essentially, bills for water uses that were undertaken on pieces of property, whether it's in the current or present or previous owner's name, for water uses that date back as far as 20 years, as we understand it from certain concerned people that raised this issue with us. So essentially, farmers find themselves handed over to debt collectors with respect to bills for water that they claim they have no knowledge of, that might be faulty or mistaken in a certain sense, and which has an enormously disruptive impact on their day-to-day lives.
Janse, can I
Yes.
just interrupt on this one? Paul, I didn't know, we invited people following the agenda, so we didn't invite Paul Nell. He's our person who would have to answer this question. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're trying to get him to join the meeting. There's not much point in continuing until he joins, because you're going to have to repeat the whole question when he joins.
Perfect. Thank you, DG. It might not also be the opportunity now to finalize or get a conclusive answer on that, but raising that within mind future discussions on it. I can't see hands. Now I could see if you could assist me with people raising their hands for questions to the Director General and to his team. If not, again, we have once in a while we have this opportunity to speak to the DG. Let me see and then ask the correct question. I see the hand of John Flanagan and Lawrence Gilby. John, if you would unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and then just raise your question.
Good morning. Thank you, DG, for the time. My name is John Flanagan. I work with KwaZulu-Natal Agricultural Union in KZN. I've got quite a few questions, so I can pop them in the chat if you want. The first one is in terms of the conversion from irrigation boards to water users associations. We've had a couple of practical challenges. Sometimes we've established, or our farmers, our members have established a steering committee with all the relevant stakeholders, industry, conservation, municipal departments, everybody. They submit a constitution that they draft to the minister, which is largely in line with the act, and then when it comes out gazetted, it's different, and there's little changes and adjustments that have tangible impacts on what those members are willing to commit to and what they're not willing to commit to. So that's a concern, and I guess my question is, why is that, and how do we get these things corrected when they've been gazetted wrong? That's the first question. Second question, the constitution of the Board of Water Users Associations at many times is far too prescriptive. So the one I've been working with has got specifics in terms of male, female, black, white, disabled, small scale, large scale, industry, youth, and non-consumptive uses. And there's 14 positions on the board, and all 14 are allocated using that matrix of either male or female, black or white, disabled or not disabled, scale, industry, youth, etc. And it's so prescriptive, it becomes a box ticking exercise that is just problematic. It becomes just get a crowd of people that fit the group instead of people that know how to run a water users association or to actually use the water. In the same sort of thread in terms of the constitution of the board, sometimes they are allocating 4 out of 14. So the board is 14 members, and 4 of them are non-consumptive users who are just there. So in this case, it was a game reserve down the river. Why? That's the largest out of all the users. So there's 2 spots allocated to commercial irrigators. There's 2 spots allocated to industry. And then you've got 4 for non-consumptive users. They've never had anything to do with water use or licensing. And it just doesn't make sense. That's my first 2 questions. Should I carry on or should I give a breather there? I'm quite happy to.
Maybe we should take those 2. Maybe we should start with taking those 2. Toko and Eustacia, over to you to answer.
Thank you, DG. I think thanks, John, for those questions. The first one around the issue of what is gazetted is different in terms of the Constitution. I think that is, I think we will need to look at that particular Constitution. Maybe there was a mistake from our side, but DG, we will contact John from after this meeting, because usually we do not change the Constitution without informing the proposed or the existing management committee. And if the minister changes something, it is included in the letter. Where there are issues around mainly representation. But I think, John, we will contact you to check those constitutions. And that is the first issue. And this, by the way, KZN has done very well even on transformation. The second issue, we hear what you say around the issue of representativity and also being very prescriptive, but we are trying to adhere to the transformation issues and to ensure that there is balance in terms of gender and race, and also to couple it with those that are experienced. And sometimes you find that the non-consumptive views like tourism and ecotourism, we are also brought in because also of the issues of transformation. But it is a process. We appeal to you that Minister has given this process 12 months to say at the end of 12 months, we will be able to come back and to discuss in detail how this issue of transformation is going to evolve. Thank you, DG. Eustacia.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks. Should I continue with my other questions?
Sure.
John, if you could, we have another question too. If you could be brief on the question so that we can give other participants also the opportunity.
That's fine. Water users associations effectively have been past the job that used to be Department of Water and Sanitation's. Regulation, monitoring, developing, clearing waterways, policing, and I'm yet to see a financial model created for these water users associations. There's significant task allocated to them, but I'm yet to see a sustainability model in terms of the finances and how are they going to capacitate those water users associations. Has one of those been made, and how do we see it, and how can we evaluate its effectiveness? And then in terms of landowners attempting to re-register their rights, as was called for earlier this year, we've had farmers that have received extensive emails around Section 27. So again, it's a transformation thing. But when they write in with their justification and outline the jobs created and their work in the communities, it never seems to be enough. And I've got a copy of that email. I can pop it in the chat if you want. But it's extensive. The same thing in terms of
John, just clarify what you're referring to there. Is it a licensing issue? Is it a V&V issue?
It's a licensing issue.
Okay.
And they refer to Section 27(1)(b). That's what the department has referred to, and they give a long list of expectations from the landowner that's trying to maintain his license. And then also in the licensing issue, in KZN, we're encountering like unmanageable costs. We've got a farmer trying to register 40 hectares. The cost is going to come to an excess of 500,000 Rand because the requirements in terms of surveys, culvert design, road layout are so extensive. And what the department is asking for requires different specialists and contractors and hydrological studies. And it's not actually irrigation that's new, it's existing. And it's just unmanageably expensive. Is this standardized across the provinces in terms of the cost of registering and the information required and at what level that information has to be done or not? Our farmers are phoning neighbors in other provinces and they're saying we are by far the most expensive. Why is that? So that's the two items with regards to licensing is Section 27(1)(b), the cost, and then my question before that was just around the cost models for water users associations.
Okay, Toko and Justacia, do you want to come in on the cost model for WUAs? And after you, I might add on that one. You go first, Toko.
DG, John, we've done a few due diligence on some of the irrigation boards when we did transformation, but not on every single one. It was just when there was a necessity to do it. And we will forward you the ones that we have done.
I don't think that really answers the question, Justacia. Toko, do you want to also add?
DG, the issue of financial modeling for water user association it's a difficult one. And we have seen, I'm not sure which one, John, you are, or whether it's Makatini. It's mainly difficult where they are historically disadvantaged individuals. But we do due diligence assessment DG. It's based on the projected revenue that should be collected in that particular area. We also encourage the Water User Association in terms of the billing agent agreement with Paul to make sure that they are involved in other revenue generating activities, which is going to boost their financial sustainability. So, and we always share these experiences, and SAFUA also does help us in terms of sharing experiences of how they should be working together to achieve the financial viability. Whether it has been difficult, it's for us as the government to contribute for the historically disadvantaged. In the past, we had a grant where we were contributing if the historical disadvantaged are not paying in the revenue, but that grant has since been not stopped. But in terms of the intergovernmental relationships, we are working with the Department of Agriculture, especially in KwaZulu-Natal, and they do provide grants for the poor farmers, and we are hoping that it's going to improve the financial sustainability of those WUAs that are operating mainly in rural settings. Thank you.
Okay, just to add, John, I think you've got a good point which we're aware of. that we don't have a comprehensive financial model, funding model for the WUAs. If you look at all the functions they're expected to perform, and it's a priority for us to develop such a model. In the current fiscal environment, it might not be possible to get any funding from the fiscus for it. So it's something we need to look at. What are the alternative possibilities? And we are willing to have a discussion around it. We'd be willing to receive any proposals from Agri SA as to how all the different functions of the WUAs could be financed. Sipho, do you want to come in on the licensing issues?
Thanks, DG. On the first one, on the Section 27(1)(b), I think we can engage with John and try to clarify things with him, but we'll also talk to the region and find out what were the particular areas of the emphasis that they were looking for. But I think it's a concern that we can look at and we can engage with him out of this meeting and assist him. On the issue of the existing operations where the costs are escalating, are becoming high because people are now authorizing their water use. The understanding I had is that while John is saying these people are having existing operations, he seems to be saying they are moving away from the ELU use to the licensed use. Then if that is the case, it's not a standard or a one-fits-all approach to say if we are in this property, then this will be your requirement. It takes into account other factors that are prevalent around your property, whether it's in environmental sensitive areas or all the other factors that are being considered, which will be saying and then produce these reports. So invariably, possibly, if you've got the environmental report and you've got this sort of report, depending on the impact that you'll be having on the water resources, they come at a bit of a cost, you know. And our team normally, they don't just prescribe these reports. When you make the intention to apply on our system, depending on what they see, they might come and do the site visit. Then they discuss with you. They discuss with you to say, this is your area and these are the impacts that are going to be there. As a result, for us to regulate properly and monitor these impacts, possibly we need to do this and we need to do this. So that list of requirements is agreed with the prospective applicant. Before you become even an applicant, you are a prospective applicant, then it's agreed with that person during the site visit. So maybe it's where the misunderstanding happened. Then at the time when the application has to be launched, then the person realizes that I've agreed to the reports that are astronomical in the cost. We might look into that and we might be saying what is the rationale for wanting those reports. But I think, John, you agree with me that it's not all your people are subjected to all those reports and the cost. It might be one individual out of 20 because of the peculiarities of the property that is in. But we are open also to look into that. Thanks, DG.
Thanks very much. Jansa, Sylvia has joined. She works under Paul. Do you want to repeat your question on the billing? And then Sylvia can attempt to answer it.
Yes, DG, the issue that our farmers experience is that they're receiving notices from debt collectors in connection with prescribed, or in our view, prescribed water bills, outstanding water bills that date back to 20 years that might have been incurred by previous property owners. It's creating enormous uncertainty Agri SA is not in a position to determine or verify, the correctness on either party's side, but we do need a mechanism to address the issue of debts further or older than 3 years old that are being raised and farmers are being pursued upon. I think that in a nutshell is the issue that we have, and we'd like to engage with you on that, Chair, or Director General and team. Sylvia?
Okay, thank you, DG. Good morning, colleagues. Yes, Johan, in terms of the water bills, outstanding water bills, the Department of Water and Sanitation has received a court judgment indicating that the water debt does not prescribe. So based on that basis, hence we are pursuing this outstanding debt to the farmers. However, in our engagement with the farmers, we also informed them about what we call the incentive scheme, whereby the farmers are able to enter into a repayment agreement with the department, and the department is able to waive the interest accumulated on that debt. So that's the position of the department. Hence, all these outstanding water debts are being pursued. And then on engagement with the farmers, we reach an agreement whereby farmers will enter into the repayment agreements. And also on our side, we waive off, write off the interest as per the departmental policy on the incentive scheme.
Back to you, Janssen.
Thank you for that feedback. I think there might be room for further engagement with yourself, DG, but we need to also get our ducks in a row from Agri SA's side. Again, Agri SA is an organization that fully subscribes to lawful water use in terms of the National Water Act and the laws of this country. So we'll get back to you on that point. It has been raised as the one issue that came up between arranging this webinar and the policy committee meetings that we had last week, but we'll take that up with you further. Director General and team, I see 2 more hands, and I'm expecting 1 or 2 more questions from, amongst others, Hannes de Wet. Our time is short, but Lawrence Gilby, I'm going to hand over to you. If you could just introduce yourself to the department's team and raise your question as quickly as possible. And then I'm going to hand over to Nancy.
Thank you, Janssen. Thank you, DG and the team. It's been a very useful presentation. I've got 3 questions. I'll ask them all. If you've got a chance to answer, that's good. Otherwise, we can take it another time. The first question I wanted to ask with regards to the V&V process. My understanding is that there's a surveying in that done to identify where water is being used. So my question is, in terms of that process, is there also identification of unlawful water use? And is that being dealt with in terms of the V&V process? Because when it comes to, for example, I forgot to introduce myself. From a company, Tricon Environmental, we're quite involved in the water licensing process as consultants, and we assist Agri-Gauteng and the broader agri environment. Yeah. So when we deal with the water licensing process, a lot of issues come up with the lack of water because of unlawful water use. So just my question to repeat is the unlawful use being identified in the V&V process and being dealt with? The second question I had is just get an understanding of the department's approach to, call it, registrations when it comes to licensing for water license applications. Because in many situations, a client may be applying for a certain amount of water, and there's a registration which is now unverified at this point in time. And so we get different ways of being asked to deal with it, which is quite difficult because on the one hand, the client would like to, for example, apply for the full water use and get certainty. On the other hand, this is registration and V&V process which hasn't been finalized. So it's been held back. And then when that does get finalized, then they may end up with less water than expected. So that's just to understand how the department wants to deal with those unresolved registrations in the process of licensing. And then the third question is just more to follow up. I think that's something that John raised prior to me with regards to the costs of studies and also to add procedural issues as well, is that we also do find that the request by the department for studies is not always actually agreed with the applicant up front. they might be informed up front, but it's not really an agreement. And often there is a disagreement between the applicant and the department, and it's difficult to resolve sometimes. And I think just to maybe add what we see perhaps on the ground is that I think sometimes the studies in the context of what's been looked at are not necessary. And if I can perhaps just give a simple example just to highlight the point, is in certain cases when an applicant is applying for groundwater, which is near to like a main river, then the department will require a groundwater study to see the impact on the river, which is fair enough. However, we find situations where there's like for example, a drainage line where there's no water flowing except for when it rains, and then the client's also been requested to, perform this groundwater surface water interaction study, which is not really necessary in the circumstances. And again, it's difficult to get to a resolution sometimes with the department. And similarly, we've been also asked in certain cases to do large-scale geological studies for a domestic bore for a house. So I think it's just something that does need to be dealt with. And my question in that regard would be: is what is the correct process to follow when there isn't a resolution being formed, at the local DWS office dealing with application? Thank you.
Okay, Sipho and Kulani, those are all for you. Sipho.
Thanks, DG. The first answer is yes. VNV, when it's conducted, it also establishes the unlawful use. Whether it's in irrigation, whether it's the existence of the dam, we check if it was in existence during the qualifying period. So the answer, we identify the unlawful uses that are happening, and having identified that, then we escalate that information to our CME. Then meaning what? Meaning that you'll find that a person is irrigating, for instance, is irrigating or whatever amount of hectares. Then when we do VNV, we pick that actually during the qualifying period, there wasn't irrigation that was taking place. Or still, there was irrigation that was taking place, but it was never authorized by any other law that was in existence at that time. So you don't meet the requirement of being a lawful user. Then when we conclude the process, we simply write to you a confirmation letter which confirms a 0 ELU in that particular property. Then having done so, we allow you to contest that finding if you so wish with the water tribunal, then failure of which we enforce. So yes, we do that. Then the other question with respect to the registration and the verification, I battled with it to understand, but I will think, let me talk to the context of it. Is that possibly you've got a person who's got X amount of water that is registered in our system, but his ELU is still under verification? Then this person also wants to migrate the current use and make it a licensed use. I think is what is being said here, if I understand properly. I'm not sure what is the apprehension in this regard, because if you're confident that this is your ELU, you continue to exercise that ELU until it's replaced by the license under compulsory licensing. Now, the apprehension about the person losing the amount of water that is actually exercising when the license, when the ELU is converted into a license, I should think that is the reality that we should look at, and it's real and is based on a number of things. It's based on law, it's based on the efficiencies, on the application of the water use and so forth. So that is part of the process of managing our water resources. Then the last one of the costs. DG, with respect, I think this one, I request that it should not be forming part of this meeting because it's not going to be a generic problem. It's a problem that will arise, and in the main is based on a misunderstanding. The problem that will arise from time to time, but we might be engaged as licensing out of this, and then when Agri SA possibly has got particular specific areas of concern, then we deal with them. But we maybe in my earlier submission, I gave the impression that it should be actually an agreed process. It should not actually. It's an information that it should be thoroughly explained to the water user, but it's not a negotiated process. We're the regulator. Then when we're the regulator, we're saying this is our requirements and these are the reports that will actually make sure that we give effect to our requirements. But we also hear the outcry from Agri SA that possibly we might be going overboard in terms of our requirements. So it's something that we might look at and might believe is an isolated case. Because, for instance, I'm hearing the example of saying when a borehole is dug for domestic use. When a borehole is dug for domestic use, then it becomes a Schedule 1 use. It's not a licensed use. So the example does not really fit with what we're discussing. So that's why I'm saying we might look into those things and maybe deal with specifics around that. But I think things that are isolated, and we might be looking at them and to say, where are they coming from? Whether there is a problem in the system with regard to the specific area and deal with it once and for all. But we will welcome the offsite engagement with respect to these ones. Thanks.
Thank you for that
Polani,
response.
would you like to? I just would like to ask Polani to add.
Thank you, TC. Yes, we are engaging as a team with the WULA team, and we will be looking at ensuring that there is indeed a consistency in the application of our WULA processes. And as Advocate Skosana has said here, we will then have an opportunity to engage Agri SA on this matter and other related matters. Thank you, TC.
Okay, thank you. Janssen?
Thank you for that. Lawrence, I do see a hand still up, but I'm going to give Nancy O'Farrell a chance to present her question. I have one more question from Hannes de Wet, but I also want to introduce Agri SA's new Chief Executive Officer, Johan Coetzee, and then at the end of this meeting, Lopsha Coetzee would conclude. So we're mindful of time. There's about 14 minutes left. Nancy, over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Nancy O'Farrell. I'm in the Mpumalanga area, Crocodile River. My big concern with licenses is we've got a number of licenses that are coming up for renewal now. Now, it was a farm, then it was Department of Rural took over, and they've given it to the CPAs or a trust. Now, I'm very blunt, so what has stuck its ugly head out is the following. They now need to renew their licenses. When we went to the IUCMA with this problem, it triggers, because you've got to go into the eWULA system. There is no button on there to do a renewal. There is only there that you have to reapply as if you were applying for a license from the beginning. We have got CPAs and trusts that have worked flippin' hard to get their farms up and running and to be productive and are in joint ventures. But now with this whole renewing of the license, it has triggered costs of between 60 and 100,000. Now, I don't know where the beneficiaries must go and get this money from, because it's triggered public participation, hydrology reports, blah, 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 all the rest, okay? The IUCMA is really trying to assist us, but they can only go so far in what they can do. Gentlemen, what I'm trying to say is when you renew the license, because it's not, a facility is not available on eWULAs, it's like reapplying for your K53 license every time this thing expires. Nothing has changed on the farms. They're still farming, they're still doing everything that's, happening and all that kind of stuff. There has to be a better way or a more streamlined way or something to help. Because I'm going to be very honest with you, the beneficiaries were getting extremely agitated with my office, because I'm the one who had to give them the message to say, your license is about to expire, you've got to renew. And then they were told with the cost. That I actually said to them, I'm going to hire a bus, put them in the bus and drive them through to Nelspruit and give them to the IUCMA and say, okay, you help them, because the water is the fundamental of their property for them to be in a win-win situation to go forward. So this is a massive concern for us, and I would appreciate any assistance possible. Thank you.
Okay, Sipho and Polani. Sipho, do you want to go first?
Yeah, DG, I want to go first. It's fine, DG. I think our system it's fine, and is in sync with the National Water Act. We're striking a balance here, and Nancy must appreciate it. And the balance was striking. We don't want, as the regulator, we want to make sure that things are correct. We don't want to just replace a renewal with a date to say there was an earlier date and then there is a later date. And yet, during the time of the subsistence of the license, a lot of things have been going on the property. But that also calls for a fine balance of us not to put undue requirements on the side of the applicant, even if nothing has changed with respect to the operations. But now, for you to have the system and make sure that everything is checked from the case officer's side, then when the renewal is done, they immediately check the things that might have been the gap, things that have changed during the course of the operations and all that, then concentrate on those. Now, why the application is required basically is what the Act says, because that renewal is considered in terms of the Act as the application in terms of the section 41 of the Act. But the mechanics of managing it in the system, it might be frustrating because, as Nancy correctly put it, she doesn't see the dedicated button which deals with the renewal. We might want to invent that button, but you might find that materially the things we ask after you've pressed that button, they are more similar with the things that we ask on the license, because of actually of other things that we are checking. So is that fine balance? It's a renewal, but in its approach and the things that we are checking, they reside within the license, Nancy. And I'm very worried to say, let's not overplay the things of the CPAs as if we are unreasonable on them. Let's open it up and let's engage and see to what an extent that they are being prejudiced by this thing, and how do we intervene without maybe waiting for such big for us to raise them. Thanks, DG.
Polani, do you want to add?
Thanks, DG. Maybe on the issue of the CPAs, we are currently engaging the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, where we are dealing with all the water allocation reform and land reform related matters. We may also verify with them the extent of the challenges that the CPAs are having with the system. But in terms of the review of the whole system, is what advocate has discussed. We may look into how we develop that pattern, and also just to see, or even in terms of our compliance monitoring, how can we make sure that some of these issues that come out when the license is renewed are addressed during the compliance monitoring processes. Thank you, DG.
Thanks. Nancy, I've also noted this issue, and I'll look at it together with Polani and Sipho. I think we'll need to talk more about it later after we've had a chance to look at it in detail. Back to you, Jansa.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. Hannes de Wet, a quick question. We have two more participants in Loubser Kutsia and also Johan Kutsia following you.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to have the following questions or comments. The first, I'm from the Northern Cape, and the first question is about the Val-Gamagara pipeline ending up in the Kalahari East pipeline. Now, we know there's big problems with this pipeline, and there's a phase 2 that is not getting off to. I know the board is changed to the Mid-Vaal something board, but wouldn't it be better to put up a water users association to manage and give that water users along that pipeline a better say in the amount of water? Because there's always and there will be a bigger conflict of water, because phase 2 is looking at a underground source of water which would impact the farming community around it. And that goes to the second point, and that's the boreholes around the towns in the Northern Cape. And we've got more than one town that farmers are complaining the towns keep on pumping and no one is monitoring them. And when the boreholes is drying up, they only go farther away from the town, making the farms next to the town without water. So would it be possible for the department to have better monitoring on these systems? And if there's additional systems, maybe that cost more, but would have a longer period of use, wouldn't it be better to look at them then? And the third thing I just wanted to note is that with the V&V done in the areas that hasn't got the guaranteed supply of water, like the Vis and the Renoster there in Calvinia's area, with the V&V, they have now issued volumes to that people per year, but they only get water every 5 to 7 years when there's good rainfall in the mountains. Now, that would lead to accounts that the guys can't pay there because they've got water once in 5 years. What happened in the past, and I've got the written consent here, is that they have divided the total volume that was given to them, was divided in the years that they've got water. So say for instance they get 10,000 cubic meters per year. Now they would only pay for 2,000 because they only get once in 5 years the water. That's my 3 questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Hannes. On the first one, Leonardo, would you like to come in on Val-Gamagara?
Okay, thank you, DG. Thank you, Hannes, for the question. In terms of Val-Gamagara phase 2, yes, you are correct. There were problems as far as the institutional arrangements are concerned for the implementation of that project. But on the 13th of November, there was a meeting where all parties eventually agreed that the DBSA, the Development Bank of South Africa, will be the implementing agent for this project, and the Vaal Central Water Board would actually accept it, that new arrangement, and therefore the agreements are now being evicted in that regard, so that the implementation can go ahead. In terms of where we stand with regards to the operations of that scheme, the DG and we received a submission from the mining houses in that area who currently are are basically making the proposal also to assist us with the funding of that government water scheme, also to look at another means of also the implementation of the maintenance philosophies and so forth for the scheme. And so we are looking at that as well. But why we are not looking at it from a perspective of a water use association is that you'd understand that the Water Use Association emanates from the National Water Act, which is looking basically at water resources in its untreated form. And there was another act, the Water Services Act, that actually looked at water in its treated form, which is then the water services component for it. And the latter is not allowing really for a water use association to fulfill that function. But at the end of the day, we are looking at mechanisms that make it efficient and effective for the management of water. And we take cognizance of the fact that a large component of the water supply that will go into the system will emanate from dewatering, as well as groundwater itself, as it augments the water supply that comes from the wall. So we are cognizant of that, and we take note of the point that you are raising, that there need to be effective management of the aquifers in that area, so that it doesn't bring it not to the that it wouldn't be to the detriment of agricultural activities around it. The department take notes of that as we continue with this exploration of new institutional arrangements for the management of the Vaal scheme.
Thank you. And then Sipho, do you want to take the last two questions?
Yeah, DG, I think the question I heard is about in the area of First and Renoster, to say the people are getting water once in 5 or 10 years, and yet there is no guarantee for them to have water, but possibly we are doing the full recovery. I don't know, something does not make sense here, DG, because when you do the farming operations, you need water every time you irrigate. And then if they getting water once in 5 years, are they still in business? And because we want to be then saying what is the amount of water you are using to sustain your operations and hence the recovery. But when people are receiving water once in 5 years, and then they are saying in 5 years we're receiving this amount, we start to divide. Somewhere it does not make sense. The story is not complete, and because as they are applying the water in their operations and to the extent of their operations, and that is the water that they need to account for. VNV is a study that is down on the ground, and it says we established scientifically that there is irrigation that is taking place in this area, and this is the extent of the irrigation. And that water use is still taking place, i.e., there are still operations that are happening there. So then to say it's happening in once in 5 years is a bit of a challenge. But we can talk about it, DG. But I think that is my response to the question. I might have missed the other part of the question, DG.
The other part of the question was about VNV.
Yeah, it's the same. It's around VNV to say, well, what does VNV establishes?
Okay.
Yeah.
Janssen, we've run out of time. I see there's a couple of requests for the presentations. Corin will send you the, she'll gather all the presentation, all 4 presentations, and send them to you after the meeting.
Thank you, DG. In conclusion, I'm Lobsha Kutsia, with your permission, I want to give Johan Kutsia, Agri SA's new Executive Director, just an opportunity to introduce himself and then perhaps also close the meeting. I know you're running on a tight schedule, Dr. Phillips. Johan, over to you, if you don't mind.
DG, yes, thank you so much for the opportunity. And I first want to say thank you to you and your team for hosting the webinar. I think 2 things in my mind is strategically and also operationally, you give us the opportunity for agriculture to be involved. And I really appreciate that. And my take is we need to come back and also kind of reschedule our own concept of where could we possibly advance your strategy and maybe operationally where could we as agriculture or Agriculture South Africa be involved in a more efficient operation. And I think that's what I've heard. So firstly, thank you so much for the dialogue. Maybe a question on, and I don't want you to elaborate, but I need to bat this in the media. And I think many of the things that goes into the media goes with a lot of emotion, and then we miss the opportunity of a greater outcome. You did mention about the National Water Amendment Bill, the procedure. That's all I want to know. You mentioned something about the minister. For me, it's just, if you can, in 10 seconds, just explain the process that we need to follow, and that what that is going to be followed until the minister is going to eventually publish the amendment itself after comment. So if you maybe just can comment on that to clarify it, so that we can manage the media and not get emotional in the whole process.
Okay, sure. The bill will follow the same process as any other bill follows. All government bills first have to be published for public comment. Then the public comments are processed. In this case, we published on Friday last week. There's a 60-day period for public comments, which excludes the public holidays over December, January. We then look at all the public comments received, and then we then go to Cabinet with a description of the comments received and the recommendations to Cabinet for any further amendments to the bill. And then we ask Cabinet for approval for it to be submitted to Parliament. Parliament then goes through its own public consultation process on the bill before passing it into an act. So that's the process on the National Water Amendment Bill.
Thank you. It clarifies it. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Labsha, could see a last word from you. I'm taking liberty, but if you want to come in just to wrap up this meeting from my side, Dr. Phillips and team, thank you so much. We look forward to continuing in the same vein and in the same manner, constructive manner in which we engage with you on water-related matters. So thank you from my side as a last word. Labsha, could see it. You get the last chance before Dr. Phillips and team need to be excused.
Yeah, Janse, Dr. Phillips, thank you very, very much for this meeting. I think what has happened now and what I've experienced is that it is of utmost importance that we have this discussion and this interaction with each other. I mean, we can't go without doing this, and that's why I want to thank you again for the open door that we have as Agri SA to your office. And the communication is absolutely vital, and if we don't communicate, we won't get the problems and the issues on the table. And that's why it's so important that we do have this, and I hope that will be the one of many to follow. So thank you very much again for all your team members. I really appreciate that. And from Agri SA side, there's open door. What is beleid? Help me, Janse. Policy, yeah. Thanks, man. Is of vital importance for us. So thank you very, very much. I also have a couple of questions, but I'm not going to put them forward now. I think we can do it on a later stage. But I just want to tell you that a lot of things that a lot of people have said here is not only isolated to them and their places or regions, but it is a lot of things can I say to you is a national issue, and that's why it's so important that we keep this communication channels open. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We also agree with the importance of communication. And Janse, you're welcome to send me directly any additional questions, and we can respond in writing.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. Really appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Dr. Phillips, I conclude the meeting. Everybody, thank you for participating. And to those we don't see, have a good festive season, safe and prosperous.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Chair.
you. Bye-bye.